Greetings, friends. This is Josh.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are here on the Dead Tired Dads podcast. Ryan, I'm excited that this whole thing is getting going.
Me too.
So, it's a very interesting thing to, begin a podcast. I'm not really sure how we got here. But here we are. So, it's just a funny, how things kind of came together and it all kind of worked out like this. Can you tell us a little bit about what your idea was and how this whole thing began?
Yeah, so I was sitting at home and for a couple weeks I've been thinking I'd really like to record a podcast, but I don't know about what. But my friend Josh is a great idea man, so I'm just going to text Josh and tell him we should record a podcast. And so I text you, Josh, and I said exactly that. And you said what to me?
I've been thinking the same thing. Podcasts are something that seem that could be a lot of fun. Like you said, I am an ideas guy. I like sharing ideas with people. And so then it just kind of became this thing of well, what do we want to do? What do we want to talk about on this podcast? And it turned out that, we're both dads.
Yes.
We both have kids. And
True.
We both love video games.
Mm-hmm.
And as dads and responsible adults...
Responsible. Yes. Very.
Sure. We'll semi-responsible maybe. We both have a hard time fitting in our pastime of video games into our daily lives. And so kind of figuring out a way to discuss video games in a way that suits that lifestyle of
True.
being a gamer that just doesn't have time to game.
Yes. So this is a podcast for
Gamers who don't have time to game. So we're excited about this. We had Matt, who is another friend of ours,
right.
and I had started a YouTube channel several years ago when we were both the two of us were pretty much brand new dads, and so Matt and I did that for a little bit, and we just kind of took that same moniker of Dead Tired Dads and slapped it on the podcast. Hopefully that YouTube channel will also be picking back up a little bit as we get this rolling.
Yes, it should, because it's funny. And it's good stuff.
So, but yeah, so that's the podcast. And so this is just kind of our introductory thing here. So
how should we introduce ourselves, Josh? What should we share? Should we talk about ourselves? Should we talk about video games? How should we introduce ourselves?
So, well, as we said, I'm Josh, and so I've got two kids. My oldest is 5, who just started kindergarten, and that's
exciting.
Terrifying. And then I have a
7-month-old.
Right? Yes, 7 months.
So you are literally a dead tired dad.
I am a dead tired dad. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as a dad. As a gamer, I've been playing video games for a long time, seemingly anyway. I collect retro game systems and stuff like that, and so I've got a lot of games. I have a lot of stuff that I haven't played and that I just have collected. So there's lots of content there, but as we've said, I don't have time for it. And so,
yeah.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, same. So also 2 kids. I have my oldest son will be 7 next month, and my second boy will be 3 in December. So a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm not quite as tired as you with your 7-month-old, but I remember those days. My first video game experience. My dad bought me an NES, a Nintendo Entertainment System, in 1990 for my birthday. I was 5, and with it, I played Tecmo Bowl. It was my first game that I ever played was Tecmo Bowl.
Did you play with Bo Jackson, or was it?
No, I got dominated by Bo Jackson is what happened, because I made the foolish mistake of trying to use the Colts and the Vikings. So, yeah, kind of the same. I love video games. I've been playing, or at least attempting to play them for a long time, and most of my friends who know me as a gamer know that I never finish a video game because of my busy schedule.
Finishing games can be tough. See, I always have a hard time finishing games because I don't want them to end. So
Yeah.
I'll get to the last bit of the game and be like, I don't want to finish this right now, so I'm gonna set it down
Just
and
stop.
then like I never go back to it, which is problematic. But so yeah, fun
See,
times.
I have the opposite. When I get to that point, I want to finish so that I can like sort of check it off of a list of like I've finished this game. But my problem is I get to the middle point and I get busy with something, or I try a new game and I never go back to that old game.
Yeah. The backlog is something to behold for sure, and definitely the struggle is real, as the young people like to say.
Struggle is real.
Struggle
Oh
is
gosh, are we referring to people as young people?
Yeah,
Does that make us old?
I guess so.
Oh no.
We're parents, so I mean
True.
that puts it like once you become a parent, it's like default
Dad jokes.
old.
Incoming.
Yeah. So kind of to let you guys get how would we say it? Adjust to our taste, maybe.
There you go.
I should quit clapping. This is a podcast. I'm sorry. To adjust, I have to fiddle with my hands. It's what I do.
Play-Doh. Someone taught me one time Play-Doh because it's quiet.
Oh,
Boom. The things you learn in
That is-
random conversation.
interesting. Anyway, to give you guys kind of an adjustment to our taste and what kind of games we like to play, Ryan thought we'd do a top 10 of our favorite video games of all time. And I told him, hold up, Ryan. Top 10 is going to bog people down too much.
10 is a lot.
That's a lot of games.
It is.
So we were like, okay, fine. Top 5 then. Top
So
5.
you forced me to restrict myself,
Look,
which was a challenge.
yes, coming up with 5 games to like be like, these are the ones. These are the best games I've ever played. So I went about that in kind of a way as kind of thinking like, what are games that I kind of go back to over and over and over again? Games that I could play, and not just play, but also like beat. And not just beat, but also be like, hey, that was still a fun experience.
You enjoyed it.
It's still
It was
fun.
worth your time.
Right. So that's kind of how I approached it. So
That's fair.
as I went through it, I was sitting there going, it's really sad. I don't have like some of my like favorite franchises on this list. Like there's not a single Mario game. Mario is like one of my favorite franchises out there, but there's not a single Mario game on my top 5.
Ooh. Tough.
So that's kind of how I approached it. How did you kind of go about breaking down your top 5?
Kind of similar. I a part of it was like I could go back to this and play it. Some of it was like fond memories of like one of the games that'll appear on this list. I beat it. I finished it, and it was so good. Such a good game that I just immediately restarted it. Like instead of moving on to another game, I just restarted the same game.
Wow.
So that's sort of impacted it. Also, like I have a big thing in video games for storytelling. So like I don't care a ton about graphics. Yeah, that's neat. That's great. But for me, it's like if a story draws me in. So a lot of the games on my top 5 list, you'll recognize a theme of like this really good storytelling that the writers and the developers did.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm very similar in the way that like I approach games. I don't care as much about graphics. I do like a good story, but I think for me like gameplay is like super important. Like how fun is the game just to play?
Yeah.
So kind of we'll just dive in. So I'll go off with my top 5.
Josh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are we going backwards, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or are we going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, I think going starting from 5.
That makes
5
sense
and
to me too.
Yeah. Excuse me. Another thing, one of the other things that I did was like I have like these franchises that I really like.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of was like, I really love this franchise, and of that franchise, this is the one that kind of sticks out to me. And so
Okay, I thought you were gonna tell me you cheated and just threw the whole franchise in
no,
there.
I wanted to do that. So like, but no, I did not. So one of my favorite franchises of all time. See, when I was in high school, one thing that I did with my friends was I skateboarded a lot, and so like the Tony Hawk games were like just absolute glory to me. I loved all the Tony Hawk games, and Tony Hawk's Underground. It was like the first one that actually had a story, which we kind of talked about being an important aspect to us. It had a story to go along with it, and you were this skater, and you could kind of go through and become a pro skater, and it was just a lot of fun, and I could play that. I played that game multiple times through.
Those games were fun.
So that was my number 5. Number 4 for me is Metroid Prime, and I feel like this should be lower on my list, but as I was thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Or as higher on my list, as it were, not lower, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So Metroid Prime, just one of those games that absolutely, it's just fun. It's a creative, take on a new thing. And so Metroid Prime, Age of Empires 2.
Oh man, Age of Empires
is my number 3, and that one makes my list because I play that game all the time still.
To this day.
Like all
That's
the time.
awesome.
That game came out so long ago.
That is great.
I've got some friends that I grew up with that we, every now and then we'll all get together and just go on binges where we'll play every night for months. And then we'll just kind of take this huge break and then we'll come back to it. So shout out to those guys. You know who you are. So that's my number 3. Number 2, Batman Arkham Asylum.
Nice.
And that one, it's just so much dang fun to play. I've played through those games multiple times, like all of them except for one of them, I think, or 2 of them I've played through. So I guess really just the first 2 I've played through multiple times. But I was having a hard time between like the first one and Arkham City. But I think Arkham Asylum takes it as the better game just because of the way that it introduced things. And like, for me, it's so cool because it's still influencing the way that games are made. Like the new Spider-Man game. Like as I was playing the Spider-Man game for the PS4, like I was like, this is so much like Arkham.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I really, really loved it, was because it kind of took me back to that, and the fighting style was just so similar. And then number 1, this is a cop out and a cheat, but Ocarina of Time.
Oh, you did it!
I did it.
I knew it had to appear on there somewhere.
Yeah, I had to. And I was kind of going back and forth. I was like, should I do Ocarina? Should I do another Zelda game? But it was the first, it was the first Zelda game that I really played. Game. And it was the first one that, sucked me into that world of Hyrule. And yeah, so those are my top 5 games that I enjoy, and that I would say top 5 of all time. So.
That's a good list. I like that list. Should I get mine?
Go for it.
All right. So, starting at number 5, and this is where I wanted to cheat also because it's a whole franchise. I wanted to just list the entire Mass Effect franchise because I'm one of those people. I'm one of those rare people that even thinks Mass Effect Andromeda is a good game. So I know, like, if people listen to this, we're going to catch a lot of flack for that, or at least I am. But I do think that Andromeda is a good game. It's not great, but it's worth your time. But no, I can't cheat, so I'll have to go with Mass Effect 2 as my number 5. I love that game. Great game. It's one of those that I said that there's one on this list that I finished it and immediately restarted it, and it's Mass Effect 2.
Wow. Okay.
Number 4, Skyrim. I almost didn't put this on the list because there were some other games that I wanted to put there, but I had to put it on the list just based on the sheer amount of hours that I've spent on this game. I've played this game for so many hours, it seems like it has to be on the list.
Well, so that was another thing. So I've got other games that I've poured tons of time into.
Yeah.
But I wanted to keep it more like traditional games. So like the games that I pour a lot of time into are actually like music games that are like.
Oh, I see.
I played Rock Band and Guitar Hero a ton.
Right.
And I wanted to. Part of me wanted to put one of those on the list, but I was like, it's such a cheat.
But yeah, and I also don't think you could. I mean, I guess you could. Everyone's preference is their own, but I don't know that you could make a strong case for one of those being like the 5 best games.
Right. Exactly.
So that was number 4, Skyrim. Number 3, and this is the one that I felt like you felt this way about Ocarina of Time. I felt this way about my number 3, World of Warcraft. I had to put it on the list. I didn't want to, but I also did want to. I should say that I no longer play World of Warcraft just because, like we said, we're busy. We have wives and children, and so I just don't have time for it. But I loved my time in Azeroth, if you will. It's a great game.
And incidentally, if you want to see my experiences in Warcraft, those are on YouTube.
Remember how I said there was some funny content on the YouTube channel? That is it. Number 2, Divinity Original Sin 2.
That's not one I'm familiar with at all.
I think a lot of people who listen to this show may not be familiar with it. Some hardcore gamers will, but some won't. That is a great game, and I'm going to say something and mean it with sincere confidence. That is the best RPG ever created. I don't feel any doubt in saying that game is the best RPG ever created.
You're going to have some Final Fantasy fans.
I know, people are going to be mad at me. Final Fantasy fans are going to be mad, and I love me some Final Fantasy, but Divinity Original Sin number 2
Kingdom Hearts fans too.
Oh, I know. They're going to be mad at me, Josh, but I'm okay with it.
We're just trying to get this podcast started.
I will soak up that hatred.
They're going to cancel us because
we're canceled already. Oh no. Number 1, Last of Us, the first one, the original Last of Us. I love that game. I think it's the best story I've ever played in a video game. Just playing through it, the story, the characters, the whole thing. I think it's the best story I've ever had in a video game experience. So that is my top 5.
Wow. So I'm kind of surprised. I guess I shouldn't be because hopefully that gives you guys kind of an orientation of where we're at. And as you can tell, we're both very different in based on those lists. I feel like we're both very different in the things that we're looking for in games. And I think that could be it could cause some tension maybe.
That's true. I wondered if we'd have any overlap.
I was wondering that myself, and Ryan has his list.
I told you how hard it was to narrow down.
He has his next 5
I
listed,
do have my next 5.
I see. So we do have at least one overlap in the top 10.
We do.
But beyond that, I don't think we have any overlap. Besides,
that's a good thing.
He's got Ocarina of Time listed at number 10.
I had to. It's such a great game. I mean, I had to.
So yeah, I think that's interesting that we don't have that overlap, and I think that's like you said, that's a good thing that gives us both perspective, and hopefully gives you guys out there some draw to be like, oh well, I can listen to Ryan about that, and I can listen to Josh about that, or you can just be like, I'm not going to listen to either of those guys because they're
what do they know?
Did
you hear their lists? Ryan thinks Divinity is better than Final Fantasy. I'm not listening to that guy.
So yeah, that is a brief introduction into our lives, into our video game lives, and hopefully that gives you some ideas about who we are and what we do. And we're looking forward to sharing with you guys about our video game experiences and talking about games that we've found that are worth your time, worth your effort, worth your money as a busy gamer and as a busy adult. Dad, mom, whatever it is that you're doing, that you don't have time for games. And we hope that we can also kind of share some of our insights into parenthood and life in general. And
so Josh, that reminds me, should we give them a preview of what's coming in future episodes, or should we just leave them with the teaser of check us out next time?
Well, yeah, future episodes, go for it.
All right, so like Josh was just saying, we hope that we can give you some insight on what games are worth your time, because you are tired parents, spouses like us, and you work and you have lives outside of video games, unfortunately. So kind of what we hope to do in future episodes is give each of us sort of review or preview a video game that we played and give sort of an indication on whether or not it's, if you only have a limited amount of time, or if you are torn between should I play this or that, hopefully we can give some insight on why you should or should not play the game that each one of us will discuss.
So yeah, and that'll be a probably a good portion of the podcast moving forward.
Yeah.
But like I said, hopefully we can get into life in general and parenting and just how things are going. So hopefully you've enjoyed this and getting some insight into our lives. And if you want to, you can review us. Go ahead and do that. And
Yes, please do.
yes, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.